The city was a tomb. Once bustling with life, it now lay in ruins, a silent witness to the apocalypse that had swept through it. The streets, once filled with the sounds of laughter and the hum of daily life, were now eerily quiet, save for the occasional rustle of debris in the wind. Buildings scraped the sky, hollow and broken. These towering giants, once symbols of human achievement, now stood as crumbling monuments to a world that no longer existed. Their windows, shattered and empty, stared down like the hollow eyes of a long-dead giant. Dust and ash swirled in the air, remnants of the fires that had raged through the city. The air was thick with the smell of decay and destruction, a constant reminder of the catastrophe that had befallen humanity. Sarah hugged the shadows, her heart pounding. Every creak, every distant sound set her nerves on edge. She had learned to move silently, to blend into the darkness, for in this new world, being seen often meant being dead. She moved like a ghost, silent and swift. The infected were everywhere. These once human creatures, now twisted and grotesque, roamed the streets in search of their next victim. Sarah had seen too many people fall to their relentless hunger. They weren't alive, not anymore. Stripped of their humanity, they were driven by a primal urge to feed. Their hollow eyes, devoid of any spark of life, were a chilling reminder of what Sarah could become if she wasn't careful. Their eyes glowed with a sickly yellow light, a haunting beacon in the darkness. It was as if the infection had given them a new twisted form of sight, allowing them to hunt even in the pitch black of night. Their moans echoed through the empty streets, a constant mournful wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that haunted Sarah's dreams, a reminder that she was never truly safe. They craved flesh, driven by a hunger that never died. No matter how many they consumed, their hunger was never sated. It was a relentless, insatiable need that drove them to hunt, to kill, to feed. Sarah had seen what they could do. She had witnessed the horrors they inflicted on those unfortunate enough to be caught. The screams, the blood, the sheer brutality of it all. It was a sight that was forever etched into her memory. She clutched the axe in her hand, its weight familiar and comforting. It was more than just a weapon, it was a lifeline, a tool that had saved her more times than she could count. The handle was worn from use, the blade nicked and scarred, but it was still sharp enough to cleave through bone. It was her only friend in this desolate world. In a place where trust was a luxury and betrayal a constant threat, the axe was the one thing she could rely on. It had become an extension of herself, a part of her identity as a survivor, her only protection against the horrors that lurked around every corner. Every shadow, every dark alley could hide a threat. The axe was her shield, her sword, her constant companion in this fight for survival. She had to keep moving. Staying in one place for too long was a death sentence. The infected were always on the move, always searching. To stop was to invite death. She had a destination in mind, a place where she hoped to find safety, to find others like her. It was a slim hope, but in this world, hope was all she had. A beacon of hope in this sea of despair. The old schoolhouse. Her group was waiting. They had promised to wait for her, to hold on as long as they could. It was a fragile promise, but it was enough to keep her going. She had to believe that they were still there, that they hadn't given up on her. The schoolhouse was more than just a building. It was a symbol of everything she was fighting for. A place where she could find a semblance of normalcy, a place where she could start to rebuild. As she moved through the desolate streets, the image of the schoolhouse burned in her mind, a guiding light in the darkness. She would reach it no matter what. She had to, for herself, for her group, for the future. The schoolhouse was a haven, a small island of light in a world consumed by darkness. They had boarded up the windows, reinforced the doors. It wasn't much, but it was safe. For now. There were 5 of them. Sarah, the quiet protector. Clara, the voice of hope. David, the level-headed leader. Maria, the resourceful provider. And Jake, the strong but troubled soul. They had become a family, bound together by loss and fear, but also by a shared will to survive. They relied on each other. They protected each other. They were all they had left. The schoolhouse was more than just a shelter. It was a reminder of what they had lost, of the world that once was. But it also held a glimmer of hope, a promise of a future.
Clara spoke of a safe zone. It was a place she had heard about in hushed tones, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. The idea of such a place was almost too good to be true, but Clara clung to it with all her might. A place free from the infected, a haven where the horrors of the outside world couldn't reach them. It was a dream that kept her going, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. A place where they could rebuild their lives, where they could start anew, free from the constant fear and danger. It was a vision that gave them strength, a future they could strive for. She had heard whispers on an old radio. The static-filled broadcast spoke of a community that had managed to survive, a place where people were living in relative safety. A message of hope broadcast into the wasteland. It was a lifeline, a promise that there was something better out there. Clara held onto that promise with all her heart. "It's real," she insisted, her eyes shining with conviction. "I know it is." She had to believe it was real. It was the only thing that kept her going, the only thing that gave her the strength to keep fighting. "We just have to find it." The group looked at her, their faces a mix of hope and skepticism. They wanted to believe her, but the world had taught them to be cautious.
Her words were a lifeline to the others. In a world where hope was a rare commodity, Clara's belief in the safe zone was a precious gift. It gave them something to hold on to, something to strive for, a glimmer of light in their dark world. It was a fragile thing, easily snuffed out by the harsh realities of their existence, but it was there, and it was enough to keep them going.
But Jake was wary. He had seen too many dreams shattered, too many hopes dashed. He couldn't afford to believe in something that might not be real. "Don't get your hopes up," he warned, his voice gruff. He didn't want to see them get hurt, didn't want to see their spirits crushed by another disappointment. It's probably just a trap, a way to lure survivors out into the open. He had heard stories of such things, of people being lured by false promises only to be ambushed and killed. A way to lure survivors out into the open. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another one of those traps, another cruel trick in a world full of them.
He had seen too much, lost too much. The weight of his experiences bore down on him, making it hard to believe in anything good. Hope was a dangerous thing. Hope was a dangerous thing. It could lift you up, but it could also bring you crashing down. In a world as broken as theirs, hope was a double-edged sword.
David, ever the pragmatist, tried to find a balance. He understood the need for hope, but he also knew the importance of caution. "We need to be cautious," he said, "but we can't give up hope either. We'll gather more information." He proposed a plan to verify the existence of the safe zone before committing to it. "If there's a chance, we'll take it." His words struck a chord with the group. They knew the risks, but they also knew that without hope, they had nothing. And so with a mix of caution and optimism, they set out on their journey, determined to find the safe zone and the promise of a better future.
Sarah listened to the debates, her heart heavy. She understood Jake's caution. The room was filled with voices, each one louder than the last, each one carrying the weight of their fears and hopes. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process everything. She could see the worry etched on Jake's face, his eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of agreement or dissent. He had always been the cautious one, the voice of reason in their group, but now, even he seemed uncertain. Hope could be a cruel mistress. It dangled promises of safety and peace, only to snatch them away when they were within reach. Sarah had seen it happen before too many times to count. She had watched as hope turned to despair, as dreams were shattered by the harsh reality of their world. But still, she couldn't help but cling to it, like a lifeline in the storm. But Clara's words resonated deep within her. Clara spoke of a place where they could finally be safe, where they could rebuild their lives and find some semblance of normalcy. Her voice was filled with conviction, her eyes shining with a light that Sarah hadn't seen in a long time. It was infectious, spreading through the group like wildfire. Sarah felt a spark of hope ignite within her, a small flame that refused to be extinguished. The thought of a safe haven, a place to finally rest, was a powerful lure. Days turned into weeks. The journey was long and arduous, filled with countless obstacles and dangers. But the promise of safety kept them going, pushing them forward even when their bodies screamed for rest. They walked for miles, their feet aching and their spirits weary, but they never gave up. They couldn't afford to. The whispers of the safe zone grew stronger. More details emerged. They heard stories from other survivors, tales of a place where the sun always shone and the air was clean. It sounded like a paradise, a dream come true. But Sarah knew better than to trust everything she heard. She had learned the hard way that not everything was as it seemed. Still, the stories gave them hope, a reason to keep going, a location, a name. It was all they had to go on, but it was enough. They pored over the map, tracing their route with trembling fingers. Every step brought them closer to their goal, every mile a testament to their determination. They knew the risks, the dangers that lay ahead, but they were willing to face them. They had to. There was no other choice. Hope blossomed in the hearts of the survivors. It was a fragile thing, easily crushed by the weight of their reality, but it was there. They clung to it, nurturing it like a precious flower. It gave them strength, a reason to keep fighting. They shared stories and dreams, painting a picture of the future they longed for. It was a beacon of light in the darkness, guiding them forward. Even Jake couldn't completely suppress it. He tried to remain stoic, to keep his emotions in check, but Sarah could see the flicker of hope in his eyes. It was a small thing, barely noticeable, but it was there. It gave her hope too. If Jake could believe in this, then maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. One evening, Sarah made her decision. She gathered the group. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. It was a moment of calm, a brief respite from the chaos of their lives. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she was about to say. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. They needed a leader, someone to guide them, and she was ready to step up. Her voice, though quiet, held a newfound resolve. She spoke with a clarity and conviction that surprised even herself. "We're going," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "We're going to find this safe zone." The words hung in the air, a promise and a challenge. She looked around at the faces of her friends, seeing the hope and determination reflected in their eyes. They were ready. They were all ready.
"We're going," she said. "We're going to find this safe zone." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that was almost palpable. It was a declaration, a statement of intent. They were no longer just surviving, they were fighting for a future, and they would do whatever it took to reach it. "We're going to find this safe zone." The repetition of the words seemed to solidify their resolve. They were no longer just a group of survivors. They were a team, united by a common goal. They would face the challenges ahead together, supporting each other every step of the way. They were stronger together, and they knew it.
Her words hung in the air. The silence that followed was heavy with anticipation. They all knew what was at stake, the risks they were taking, but they also knew that this was their best chance, maybe their only chance, to find a place where they could be safe. They were ready to take that chance, to put everything on the line for a shot at a better future. Clara's face erupted in a joyful smile. It was a rare sight, a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness. She had been the one to plant the seed of hope, and now she was seeing it take root. Her smile was infectious, spreading through the group like a wave. It was a reminder of what they were fighting for, of the future they were striving to build. David nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He had always been the quiet one, the observer, but now, he felt a sense of purpose, a drive to do something meaningful. He was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead, to fight for a future that was worth living for. His nod was a silent affirmation, a promise to stand by his friends no matter what. Maria looked to Sarah, a silent question in her gaze. She had always been the skeptic, the one who questioned everything. But now, she was looking for reassurance, for a sign that they were making the right choice. Sarah met her gaze, her eyes filled with determination. It was all the answer Maria needed. She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. They were in this together, and Jake, though his expression remained stoic, couldn't hide the flicker of relief that crossed his features. He had been the one to voice his doubts, to question the wisdom of their decision. But now, he felt a sense of peace, a quiet confidence that they were on the right path. He allowed himself a small smile, a rare moment of vulnerability. They were ready. They were all ready.